The Secrets of Doctor Who is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, episode 175.
One day, I shall come back.
That's it. I've been renewed.
Is when a Time Lord's body wears out, he regenerates.
I'm a Time Lord. I'm not a human being. I walk in eternity.
Braveheart.
Change, my dear, and it seems on a moment too soon.
Unlimited rice pudding.
Physician, he looks wearing a bit thin. Fantastic.
I am Scottish. I can complain about things.
Ooh. Should be fine.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series Doctor Who. And today we're discussing the fourth Doctor story, Image of the Fendahl. Joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Very well, thank you. And Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, if you can, we would greatly appreciate if you would take a moment to go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast from and write a review of the show. That helps us reach out to new folks and have more people become listeners and part of our community. And we also really appreciate it when you share the podcast with your friends. That is the number one way that we get new listeners and that we grow this very fun. It's more than a podcast. It's a community of Doctor Who fans, and we really appreciate that. Jimmy, I understand that at the end of today's episode, you're going to give us a review of a Big Finish production that you recently listened to.
Yes, this was one that I particularly enjoyed, and so I'll be telling folks about it, and it's something else that they can listen to entertain themselves while we're all on lockdown.
Awesome. Sounds good. So today we're talking about Image of the Fendahl. This is a fourth Doctor story from his, the fourth season of the fourth Doctor, and aired in October 1977. And it's four episodes, and we have his companion this time is Leela, and we also get to see a little bit of K9, who recently joined the TARDIS.
Yeah, very recently.
Yeah.
Yep.
So here's a quick recap. It's present day, 1977, present day.
Ish.
Ish. And so just as the fourth Doctor and Leela arrive in Fetchborough, England, a Professor Fendelman prepares to experiment on a fossilized skull, which science says should not exist. The skull's actually an artifact of the Fendahl, a godlike being who feeds...
We've got a lot of fricatives here, don't we? Fetch, Fendahl, Fendelman. Yes,
we're going to have a good audio filter on this episode. So the Fendahl is a godlike being who feeds on the life force of others, and it's begun to awaken and kill, and worse yet, others seek to exploit the Fendahl's dreadful power. That's the synopsis from the TARDIS Wikia, so take that for what you will. So it starts with in this geology lab, in this abbey, I think it is. It's an old abbey.
House. Manor, a priory. I think they call it a priory.
Priory, that's right. And it's not Downton Abbey, but it's a priory that's been taken over by this Professor Fendelman and his team of scientists. So it's a geology lab. The scientist is talking about a human skull that was found in volcanic sediment 12 million years old, which makes it nearly impossible since human skulls didn't exist, as far as we know, 12 million years ago.
Unless you're Michael Cremo.
Who's Michael Cremo?
He's a guy who is, he does the late night talk show circuit. He's the author of a book called Forbidden Archaeology, and he claims extreme human antiquity. So he thinks humans are millions and millions and millions of years old, way older than what conventional science will support.
Okay. Well,
so this is right up his alley.
I would think, yeah. So here's an interesting little note. The actress in this, so there's one, besides Leela, there's one guest actress. She's a scientist.
Well, there's also another.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, there is. She is the main guest actress because she'll play a key role in this. Thea is the character's name, played by Wanda Ventham, who has a claim to fame outside of Doctor Who. Do you guys know who she is?
She is so familiar, but I can't remember where from.
Well, you might have seen her in the BBC Sherlock that was done by Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat. She played Mycroft and Sherlock's mother in that.
Huh.
But even more so, she is actually in real life Benedict Cumberbatch's mom. That's right.
Uh-huh.
She's Sherlock's mom on Doctor Who. So I love that crossover.
She also has a trait name for her character that's a bit of foreshadowing here, because her name Thea in Greek means goddess.
Oh, that's right. It does. Yep. Yeah. Very interesting. Little foreshadowing there. So
I like when we meet her. So she and another guy named Adam Colby, who's a scientist, are, in a room together in a lab. It's a room in this manor house / priory that they're using for a geology lab. And she and he have this scene where another guy who's kind of a cold guy named Maximilian Stale comes in and wants reports from them and stuff, and he's clearly a cold fish, but there's a warm relationship between Thea and Adam, and you kind of get the feeling like they're romantically interested in each other, but if not, they're really good friends, and it shows, and it's just a nice relationship.
I do like Adam gets a lot of good lines in this, and I think the actor plays it pretty well. He looks really familiar, but I looked him up. He didn't have anything I recognized.
Yeah, I felt the same way. He looks like one of those actors you see in things all the time. Like, in another show, he might play a medical doctor or something like that. Never really like the front runner of an episode, but always there. That kind of actor.
He has a bit of a style, which I think is actually a more modern style, frankly, too. His delivery and his attitude. Which I think it seemed familiar to me. So I really enjoyed the guest cast in this one very much.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, we switch back and forth. We see outdoors at night a man walking in the woods who starts whistling the tune from The Entertainer for some reason. This some people know it as The Sting. It's the theme song to the movie The Sting. There's no dialogue. He's just walking in the woods, and then we switch back back and forth with Dr. Fendelman's lab. Dr. Fendelman has some indistinguishable, I think, South American accent. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it's a very interesting accent. It's not German, like the weird German scientist trope that you often get. It sounds much more South American. Anyway, they start turning on these banks of equipment, and as they do so, in the first lab, Thea notices the skull starts to glow. And then her face starts to appear around the skull. They superimpose it over the skull, that sort of thing.
So this is a 1970s way of telling us that the skull is exerting mental influence over her.
Right.
Exactly. And at the same time, the man in the woods starts running, and it looks like he's running away from something. And then finally he grabs his head, he screams, he falls. And in the lab, Thea does the same thing and falls over. And then we cut to Fendelman in his lab where he says, "We're at full power, now we can commence the scans." So we're led to believe that these three things are all connected, which they are.
And of course, all that equipment is very high tech and flashy and fancy for 1977 television.
Yes. I had a lot of fun nostalgia looking at this equipment.
Old terminals and things like that.
Yes, the green screens and all that sort of thing, and how slowly things appear on the screen. So then we're in the TARDIS, and the Doctor's working on K9, and makes a point of calling K9 an it, not a she. And in fact,
not
a moment,
he.
Not a he. I'm sorry, I typo on my notes. Not a he. And Leela wants to personalize K9, calls him a he, and then they get into this discussion. And after a moment after denying he calls the TARDIS a she, he says, "Come on, old girl, don't let us down now." Like he immediately undermines his own argument that he doesn't personalize mechanical things, which is really funny. But what's going on is the TARDIS is being dragged toward how does he call it?
Relative continuum displacement zone.
Yes, or
which
a hole in space.
Glosses as a hole in time.
Yes, a hole in space and time. And from a sonic time scan, he calls it something. That's what's doing that, and it's coming from Earth. And if he doesn't stop it, Earth will be destroyed.
There's that word again, sonic. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
I know.
All I can think is the next Doctor. It makes noise. It's sonic. Tonk tonk.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So, meanwhile, the scientists, like I said before, they all appear to be living together in this manor house. And so there's they're in the kitchen the next day, and Colby, Adam Colby, who's the geologist, he comes running in to report from outside. He's found a corpse, and it turns out it's the man we saw running the night before. Thea doesn't remember what happened to her in the lab, the thing in her head and the collapsing. So she doesn't remember it. Dr. Fendelman won't let Colby, the geologist, report the body to the police because it could interrupt their work. Mm-hmm. Which, like, what are they going to do then? You're just going to let the body stay out there doing what bodies do?
Oh, no.
Apparently.
No, they got other nefarious plans for this body.
Yes. So he managed to get Colby to quiet down because with the promise that finding a 12-million-year-old skull means that he could win the Nobel Prize. Just don't taint it with, police and that sort of thing.
Well, which of course sets up for the scene where he's all of a sudden grief-stricken when another body is found, and well, what are you going to do? You tell the cops that you didn't report the first one.
Yes,
which is
the
of
classic.
Course the worst possible TV logic because well, he impeded me from calling.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
I was just going to comment on the absurdity of the logic here. I mean, in the real world, it's like, dude, we're reporting this to the police
exactly.
right now. Do you know what happens if we don't and they find out later?
Yeah, exactly.
And
exactly.
Oh, by the way, and if you threaten to fire me for that, I'll just make sure the police know that too.
Yeah.
Right. So meanwhile, Fendelman asked Stahl, the Maximilian, or Maxie as Colby keeps calling him to his dismay, call someone in London to send a security team, and that Stahl should conduct a post-mortem. So apparently he's some sort of medical doctor of some sort, or at least biology professional.
With certification from the local medical examiners board, apparently. He's on call for autopsies.
I guess so. Stahl says that while everything says the man just died, there is no obvious cause of death, the body is decomposing as you watch, like it rapidly decomposing as though all the energy has been removed from it.
Yeah, so now we have an extreme biohazard.
Yes, it sounds so. Let's get those into lockdown. Meanwhile, the doctor has arrived on Earth. First, he tries to get the lowdown on what's going on from the cows in the meadow that he's arrived in. They're not talking. So
apparently, that doctor doesn't speak cow.
Yeah,
apparently, or the TARDIS doesn't translate cow anyway.
That's
so he ends up napping while Leela has mistaken a gardener for a warrior hunting them and holds him at knife point. And the doctor, after offering him a jelly baby, gets him to tell him about Fendelman in the Priory. So they figure, okay, this must be what's going on. And they find out they're in Fetchborough, which is actually relevant to the story, the name. So the security guys have shown up, and he's detained the elderly housekeeper, I guess, this old woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's the cook and also a white witch.
We find out that she is a witch of the old religion, as they say, and he tells her no one can come in or out without authorization, and she threatens him that he'll get his, which obviously in the context of a Doctor Who story means he's doomed. Because when an old woman who
he'll be the next one,
tells you that you're doomed, you are doomed. So Colby ends up ends up in Fendelman's lab with all the computers, and he doesn't know why do you have all these computers to do archaeology? And Fendelman, who apparently made his fortune in computers, he's an electronics Bill Gates sort of thing.
He was working on like a missile control system, you would assume, for the British military or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. But since he made his fortune in computers, why are you using all these computers for archaeology? Well, when you have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Exactly.
And oh, by the way, they use computers in archaeology today, so
they do.
Quite a lot of them, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So Colby concludes that Fendelman is crazy, but he is not so sure. They find out that the skull can only be activated at night. That's apparently. And Thea sneaks into the lab at night, turns on Fendelman's equipment, and then the skull starts to do the thing it does where it's superimposing itself over her head. And while Leela and the doctor are sneaking about in the woods at night, Leela goes off to follow a guard to his cottage, which the doctor thinks she's off to go stab him in the night because Leela's the Fendelman has computers as a solution. Leela has knives.
Yeah,
Leela is rather stabby.
Yeah.
Well, I love that line about, oh, there's a guard. I'll dispatch him. I'll get rid of him. Yes. And the doctor says, you can't do that. Why? You'll upset the dog.
Right. That's why it's no good.
Leela is such a refreshing change from prior companions, though. She's definitely not in the screamer model at all, and
that's right.
Neither is she the brainy, model. Having the action companion is really nice.
Yes. So she follows the guard to a cottage while the doctor gets transfixed somehow by the skull's power ramping up, sort of like the guy in the woods from the night before. But the doctor, of course, is able to resist eventually. So when Leela gets to the cottage, someone inside shoots at her as she comes to the door. It turns out it's the guy who was the gardener for the day before. His name is Ted Moss, and he had been looking at some tarot cards on the table. Apparently, the old lady, which is I don't want to just keep her called old lady, Grandma Tyler, I guess is her name.
Mother Tyler.
Martha Tyler. Yep.
Mother
Tyler. Yes, thank you. That actually it's a title, not just her being a mother. Mother Tyler is a white witch sort of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like calling me as a priest father. It's the same kind of idea.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about it that way. And so he's in there looking for Mother Tyler, and then I don't know why he decided to shoot at Leela.
I don't know that it's so much a title as just a term of endearment.
They make it clear that they were not endeared to her at all.
Well, no, but I mean, it's based on her age and so forth. I mean, I know parallels in my own family. My great grandmother was known as Mom Beard.
There is a point.
Consequently, I can honestly tell people, yes, I am 1/4 beard.
No, there's a point in the dialogue where they talk about that she's called that because she practices the old religion, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because she was endeared to anybody, because they did not like her, but they knew if they needed something done with witchcraft or whatever, that they could go to her.
That you go to the mother. Yeah.
Yep.
But I'm not sure. Yeah, it's not a huge point, but yeah, I think was as I remember it. So Leela does get the drop on Ted Moss. Another guy comes in who is young Tyler, who accuses Ted of trespassing, makes Leela drop the gun. They're both trespassing. And then, meanwhile, Colby finds Thea in the lab. She's catatonic. The security man in the kitchen hears rustling outside, and when he investigates, he's attacked. Do we remember who attacked him outside? Did we ever see that, or any of that explained? What killed
the one in the kitchen?
The security guy in the kitchen. Yeah,
he was killed by the skull.
By the skull. There's
the whole power thing again. You heard the whiny noise, and then he drops over dead.
It wasn't something that came at him. It was the power of the skull draining his energy.
The power of the skull, because he had that. They comment about the blister on the back of the skull.
I guess that's where the skull plugs in the port to drain your energy.
Yep, exactly. That's where it sucks out all the energy.
Also, we've got the invisible Fendellini running around that we don't know about yet.
Right. Invisible. Fendellini's.
Invisible slugs with little things coming out of their mouth.
I thought the Fendellinis did a High-Wire act at the circus, but that's maybe something else. But I love the name Fendellini. I had it with sauce on my plate with pasta. So the security man has died the same way as the other guy. Thea collapses. The doctor arrives, and as Thea's laying on the ground, the two Fendellini appear to be entwined around her. Colby and Fendelman don't really they kind of rear back at first, but after they disappear again, they kind of don't react as you'd expect, having just seen this bizarre thing of things appear and disappear.
Yeah. What the Fendellini look like, and we'll see them in different sizes throughout the course of this serial, but at the moment they're kind of small. We'll later see really huge ones.
Yeah.
But they look kind of like a slug. And it rears back, you imagine a slug kind of standing up, but its head has been cut off. So you have this clean cut. And then there's a circular opening in the center of what looks like the throat, and there's a little streamer in the center that's kind of blowing around. And the overall effect is it looks kind of like a snake flicking its tongue.
Yeah.
But it's not. It looks off just enough because instead of a purely snake-like body, you have this more slug-like body. And instead of a tongue, you have this little streamer, but it still gives you the effect of a hissing snake without actually looking like a hissing snake.
And it's got like a cobra hood, which adds that snake-like element as well. Yeah. So Fendelman arrives, suspects the doctor of being involved, has him restrained on suspicion of murder for some reason. Meanwhile, Leela and Tyler send Ted Moss away. And Ted and Mother Tyler are up to something with old superstitions and witchcraft, they realize. And then young Tyler and Leela get to know each other here at this point. I'm not sure.
Young Tyler's name is Jack.
Jack, thank you. I only wrote young. So now here's a little bit of a plot hole. The doctor has been locked in a storage room, and he's trying to use the sonic to get himself out, and he can't.
It doesn't work on wood.
It doesn't work on wood, right. Someone unlocks the door and lets him out. We never find out who unlocked the door. Like, that's never resolved in this episode. That's like a huge hanging thread. Like, the whole time I'm going, but who let him out of the storage room? But who let him out? Like, it was hanging in the back of my head the whole episode.
I love the way they played that, though, because it's, the doctor's trying to get out with the sonic. It's not working. And Leela says something like, he's very kind and gentle. And it shows him kicking a box.
Throwing the sonic,
Throwing the sonic because he's upset. But yeah, they don't resolve that at all. They don't show. No one says, "Oh yeah, I let the doctor out. I let him out."
It's kind of like in The Big Sleep. Who killed Sean Ryan? Even the director couldn't figure it out, so he called Raymond Chandler, and Raymond Chandler said, "How am I supposed to know?"
Nice. You wrote the thing. So Fendelman and Colby have this conversation where Fendelman basically says he thinks the skull is extraterrestrial, even though it's Homo sapiens, even though it's a human skull. And thinks we're descendants of aliens because it's always aliens. And so
insert guy with wild hair here from the History Channel. I'm not saying it was aliens, but it's aliens.
Exactly. So Ted and Max conspire in the lab. They think the doctor and Leela are investigators, and they've got something else going on apart from Fendelman. What Fendelman's got going on, his secret thing. So you've got a couple of different conspiracies, hidden agendas going on throughout this episode, which is good. I think it makes for an interesting story. They're apparently part of a witches' coven, and Stahl, Max, is the leader of the coven. So bear that in mind. Fendelman tells Colby that he's been X-raying the skull. He knows that at the moment of the person's death, a great deal of energy gets stored in the skull. He notices that, like, the concurrence of the at the time. And that we end up, the X-ray shows a pentagram that's part of the bone structure in the skull. And Fendelman says it's a sort of neural relay where the energy is stored. And he says, for as long as man can remember, the pentagram has been a symbol for mystical energy and power. And so he thinks that's where it comes from.
Not really, but
that's relatively recent. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the pentagram is really what? It's like Aleister Crowley came up with that in the 19th century, right? Something really late.
I mean, I don't know the history of it, but I know it's become known as a symbol of mystery and power because of things like Wicca, which is in human history is a relatively recent thing.
Oh, totally new. It's 20th century.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's attempted,
but
yeah,
the pentagram. I mean, what they have in this episode isn't even a pentagram. For a pentagram, you need a pentagon.
Right.
With a star inscribed in it. Here, all they have is an upside-down 5-pointed star. That's just a star, dude. That's not a pentagram.
It does look like the stars that we all drew as kids. The little 5-pointed continuous drawn star. I mean, that's all it looked like.
Right. It's a bit of a reach to call it a pentagram.
I wonder though if they purposely did not put a full pentagram because of concerns of censorship.
Well, but they end up showing one on the floor at the end.
I don't think it's a full one again. I think it's still just a 5-pointed star.
It's just a star. Oh, okay. All right.
And I wonder if that was a conscious decision when they were filming this, because they knew the BBC watchdogs would throw a fit if they had an actual pentagram on screen.
Mary Whitehouse will put a curse on you. There you go. Pentagram.
Well, yeah, and being a kid show, they probably didn't want to, influence kids with witchcraft and the occult and that sort of thing. That the sensibilities.
Oh, that didn't stop him from doing Doctor Who and the Demons a couple of years earlier.
And this still deals with a lot of the witchcraft and the occult. They just don't have the visible symbol of it.
I guess so. Yeah. We switch back to the Doctor and Leela and Jack Tyler with Mother Tyler. She's in shock. She says something dark was in her mind and it was hungry for her soul. So she's very sensitive to telepathic spiritual energies.
She has the second sight.
She has the second sight, which is yet another time when we hear about the second sight with the Fourth Doctor. The last one was when he encountered the Loch Ness monster and the Scotsman in the tavern, who also had the second sight. So that comes up a lot. Fendahl, meanwhile, thinks the skull is some sort of beacon, that the release of the energy in it would signal that we finally reached intelligent life on this planet, that we've reached a level of technical sophistication that it should call the aliens, which is something we've heard recently on a different science fiction show on Star Trek Picard. That was the premise of the no spoilers, but that was a premise of in the first season. So I don't want to spoil too much, but yes, a beacon that signals a level of development that called an alien species. But
so Stale basically wants to be the chosen one and become the Witch Lord ruler of the Earth or something.
Yep.
Right.
Let's see how that works out for him.
Yes, and he sees that Thea is she's the chosen vessel for this, and so he chloroforms her and knocks her out, which is very dangerous. Don't ever chloroform people. No matter what they show you on TV, you could actually kill someone by chloroforming them.
Yes, you can.
Then just like, although the other thing we see in this that we never see in TV anymore is the karate chop to knock someone out. I love the karate chop to the back of the neck. I wonder if that ever worked anywhere, but it's a lot of fun.
Probably about as easily as some of Picard or Kirk's maneuvers in TOS.
Exactly. So the Doctor finds the skull in the lab, offers it a jelly baby, which it doesn't accept. Then says,
"You just had a confusion of tongue."
Yes.
At your Babel.
Yeah, that's right. I'm babbling now. He says, "Alas, poor skull," which is a nice Shakespeare reference. Alas, poor Yorick.
I almost wish they would have done the "Alas, poor Yorick."
No, except here it should have been "Alas, poor Eustace." I didn't know him at all.
Right. It starts to glow, which affects the Doctor. He reaches out to it against his will, puts his hand on it, and he's like, "Ah!" And he's saved by Leela, who comes in and kicks the chair out from under him, knocking him to the floor on top of her. So, which is a very awkward situation. He realizes the skull is being used by the Fendahl to recreate itself, to grow by consuming the soul, which is life itself. It's how he puts it.
I love Leela's response. They both ask each other, "Are you okay?" And then she goes, "You're very heavy."
Yes, because he's literally laying on top of her. It's very awkward. So the Doctor goes to see the old woman. He says that Fendelman has about 100 hours that he can operate his equipment on that skull before an explosion. So, of course, it's been 96 hours, 56 minutes, and 43.7 seconds.
And you've got the big TV screen that's showing the countdown.
I love that they don't know that, though. They assume that, we've got 100 hours from now, and then we, the viewers, see, no, they've got 2 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
And they actually explain, I think relatively reasonably, that, they have to have that counter because some of the equipment has a very limited use time. That's fair enough. You can only use it for so long before you run the risk of it burning out or something. Right.
You're replacing parts and that sort of thing. Yeah. Or exposure to whatever rays that you're shooting at the thing. That like rads.
Also, we get an explanation for Mother Tyler's psychic abilities. The Doctor explains that there's a time fissure here. Mm-hmm. Remember that hole in time that they got drawn toward?
Yes.
Well, there's that time fissure here, and she grew up near it, and so precognition is a common result he says, of growing up near a time fissure.
Right. And it's why the place is called Fetchborough. Fetch was an Old English word for apparition. So it's Fetchborough, the town where you see fetches. So Stahl has set up in the basement of the Priory a nice occult altar and worship space, well appointed.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if there's an organ down there, but and he's got Thea down there. He's injecting her with some hypodermic to knock her out, and this is the end of poor Thea. His plan is that she is the medium through which the ancient power of this place is focused, and his plan is to control the supreme power of the ancients and become a god. It never works out well for you when you try to become a god.
Nope.
So Stahl then takes Colby, Adam Colby, and Fendelman at gunpoint. I like Colby's response, which is he says to Fendelman, "I think you have an industrial relations problem."
Yeah.
In other words, I think you're having a problem with your employee here.
You need to call HR on this one.
Yeah.
That's right.
And this is a reference to the fact that in the 1970s, Britain was racked by industrial actions or strikes.
Right. Exactly. So the Doctor and Leela are now going to get in the TARDIS and travel to the fifth planet, which is where they believe the skull originated from 12 million years ago. But he discovers that there's no record of the fifth planet because all memory of it has been erased by a circle of time, making data and the records invisible, and only a Time Lord could do that.
So he knows the Time Lords have time-locked the fifth planet where the Fendahl are from.
So this is a fifth planet in our solar system. So we have
Mars and Jupiter.
See, I was assuming it was going to be, well, it got destroyed, and that's why we have an asteroid belt now. But
right.
You're right. I think that was the initial.
How they played it.
And then there's the 10th planet, which is Mondas, which comes around every once in a while. We're lousy with planets in this solar system. Apparently.
Well, the truth is we are, but we don't need to go into that at the moment.
That's a whole nother discussion. So Mother Tyler and Jack they prepare. She's doing tarot and giving him blessing wards and filling shotgun shells with salt, which apparently is going to become very handy at some point.
Yes.
In fact, the protectives that she gives him, the amulets or charms, are little bags of salt.
Right. And the Doctor realizes that the skull is absorbing the energy released when the scanner beam damages the Time Fisher. So when Fendahl turns on his scanner beam, it damages the Time Fisher. That releases energy that's going into the skull. Meanwhile, in the Priory, Stahl prepares a ritual. Fendelman realizes he's tied up near the pentagram along with Colby, and he realizes Fendelman means man of the Fendahl, so that for generations his people have been fated to bring about the Fendahl. They're all being used by the Fendahl to come back, and Stahl then murders him because he doesn't like what he's saying. So Stahl turns on the scanner, the pentagram starts to glow, Thea starts to awaken, and meanwhile upstairs the Doctor finds the Tylers, and they see the large Fendaline approaching them, and they can't move. Now it's a 6-foot-tall, truncated snail or slug creature. Yeah,
Cobra slug party streamer thing.
Yes. With the typical costume quality of the late 70s on TV. The Doctor shoots the rock salt shotgun shell at the creature, which interrupts its telepathic control of their muscles.
Wait,
so they
the
can
Doctor
run.
used a gun?
Yes, the Doctor did use a gun and kills the creature.
Yeah. Also, I like how, and they established this fairly early on, when the Fendaline are exerting their influence on people, it interferes with your ability to run. And we first see that when the Doctor's out in the woods and he's like, "Come on, legs." And he's like pulling his legs with his hands to try to get them moving again.
Right.
And that gets progressively more explicit that this is caused by the Fendaline. And so it's like selective muscle control. They can stop your legs, but not your mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which would come in handy sometimes, I think, to stop up someone's mouth. But anyway, Thea, meanwhile, in the knot pentagram, ends up transforming into this golden figure. So, who has painted eyes over her eyelids, so that her eyes are closed, but she sees.
Impressive acting, where she had to do it all with her eyes closed.
She could do this scene with her eyes closed, apparently.
Literally.
This is an effect that I first saw in. It was one of those 1970s biblical movies and I forget which one it was, but it had Old Testament stories in it. And so when they did Sodom and Gomorrah, they had the people of Sodom and Gomorrah with eyes painted on the back of their eyelids. So they'd close their eyes and there would be another eye there, and it would be like, ooh, that's so creepy. And that's basically what they have here. She's got this gold painted face with eyes on the back of her eyelids and a weird headdress and a weird robe that is no longer a lab coat, but she looks kind of like someone's reimagining of a golden Greek goddess.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And in the process, the coven is there, including Ted Moss and the other villagers who are part of Stahl's coven. And she starts transforming them into Fendaline, which is unfortunate for them, apparently. Although a slow process at times, it turns out. So the doctor and Leela, they go to the basement. They're able to save Colby, although Colby blurts out, something on the way out and gets their attention because that's what people do on TV. And the doc says, "Don't look at her eyes," but it's too late for Stahl. And he asks the doctor to give him the gun so that he can kill himself to end his suffering and not become a Fendaline, which the doctor does.
Yeah.
Which is also a very interesting difference. I'm not sure the doctor would do that in modern Who, allow him to kill himself.
Not
like
without lots of agonizing about it first.
Right.
Yes. Upstairs, the doctor asks Mother Tyler about the darkness that she's experienced, which she says is only in the cellar now, so they're safe up there. Although they find the other Fendaline killed by the salt, and he thinks that that's the origin of throwing salt over your shoulder. By the way. Is the Fendaline.
It's also what you do to kill giant cobra slugs.
Exactly. So he ends up switching off the scanner, Fendelman's scanner, which saves the planet. Thank you. But it won't stop the Fendahl. Oh, well. But he says here's an interesting description. He describes the Fendahl as a gestalt, which he says is a group creature, separate parts that together make a new, more powerful creature. And according to myth, the Fendahl is made of 12 Fendaline and a core, but the doctor killed one, and Stahl shot himself, so it's not yet complete. So it's a gestalt.
And when it does complete its gestalt, it'll be able to kill everyone in the world.
Yes, it will absorb all human beings. So we need to keep it from getting two more. The doctor sends Mother Tyler to get more salt, and sends Jack Tyler and Leela to keep watch. And that Colby and the doctor discuss how the Fendahl evolved to absorb all life, including itself. And so the Time Lords must have destroyed the planet and hid the fact from posterity, because you're not supposed to do that, which is an interesting... here's the Time Lords messing with stuff against their own rules again, and which is something that seems to come up. And he speculates that the skull affected man's evolution on this planet to make him suitable for the Fendahl over the course of 12 million years. So interesting little backstory that they're building here. Fendahl and the Fendaline appear in the corridor, but Tyler can't shoot them. He's frozen. So Leela karate chops him and fires blind at it. She closes her eyes and shoots, and turns out she's a pretty good shot, even with her eyes closed.
Yeah.
So
because accurate shooting isn't just luck. Accurate aim isn't just luck.
Yes, that's right. So the doctor's solution is he and Leela take a lead-lined box and salt to the cellar. Colby is to start the scanner for 2 minutes, then switch it off and run. And because in 3 minutes after that, the whole place is going to implode. So in the cellar, the doctor grabs the skull just as Colby turns off the scanner. So the scanner, I guess, when it's on, it distracts the Fendahl, and they won't see the doctor and Leela coming. So as it turns off, just as they're grabbing the skull, they have to run away from the Fendahl. 3 minutes later, they run upstairs through an image of the Fendahl. As the building starts to collapse, they get outside. The priory implodes. The others huddle together under the table in the cottage. Colby, Jack Tyler, and Mother Tyler are all hiding under the table. And the doctor tells Leela back in the TARDIS that he plans to dump the skull in a sun that's about to go supernova, which may or may not destroy it, which, spoilers, according to extended media, I think either Big Finish or a book or something, it comes back in a later story. So that doesn't work. And that's it.
Also, the doctor calls K9 a he.
Yes, he does.
And then is upset that she actually questions that he can call K9 a he.
Yeah, he's totally gaslights Leela in this episode. So, what do you think of this story, The Image of the Fendahl? How did I enjoyed it? I liked it. There was some really some cool lines and some cool characters in it.
See, this is one that I know I saw as a kid. I know I saw when all the Fourth Doctor episodes were being aired on PBS. I just didn't remember it.
Yeah,
it's just because of course back then I didn't have the VCR tapes, I didn't have BritBox or anything like that, so It was just whatever it would air, and so I enjoyed it. I really did. I think this is probably one of the tighter, and I use that kind of half joking of the classic Who episodes, because there's still lots of scenes where, like when it's flashing between Thea and the skull, where it's like a minute of flashing between Thea and the skull to let us know for sure that we know that Thea is under the control of the skull. Right.
There's a lot more where things aren't really happening in this, than in modern stuff.
But I enjoyed it. Very dark and creepy, and it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Jimmy,
I enjoyed it as well. This is from the period where Doctor Who was going for gothic horror, and so it's basically Doctor Who does Hammer films, and this is like a kid's adaptation of a Hammer film. It's quite scary. I like the Fendalini. It got this kind of dream logic to it with the Greek goddess, but then there are also these giant party favor slugs, and you have little elements of superstition mixed in, and it's dark and it's spooky, and it was a nicely written thing. Also, we don't get a lot of preachiness from the Doctor, and even back then the Doctor could preach about, humans, you're so violent or whatever, but we don't have that, and it's very refreshing.
Any final notes, Father Cory?
Nothing here.
Jimmy?
Don't kill yourself. Suicide is right out.
Yes, suicide is wrong, even if you're being turned into a Fendaline. So, Jimmy, that does it for our discussion of Image of the Fendahl. Tell us about the Big Finish that you just listened to.
Yeah, so one of the Big Finishes I've listened to recently is the Diary of River Song Volume 3.
Ooh.
And the River Song series is typically each volume is 4 1-hour plays. And the first of this, they tend to, after the first one, they tend to have themes. And what's typical in a box set like this for Big Finish is you'll have a running plot thread through all 4 plays that then pays off in the 4th. So it's like getting up to the reveal of the big bad, and then you deal with the big bad in the final play. In this case, so this edition of the Diary of River Song, there are a couple of running themes. One of them is it explores River's personal timeline, and it does so more than other series. But, River has her origins. She's the daughter of Amy Pond and Rory Pond. Yes, I know. And she was taken as a baby, by Madame Kovarian and raised to be an assassin for the Doctor. And so this explores that. So Madame Kovarian is in this.
Ooh,
nice.
And it thus connects and feels, I saw one commenter say it feels more like an extension of the TV show than other sets do. Also, we have a recurring Doctor in all 4 plays. He's at least in all 4 plays. He's not featured in all 4 plays, but it's Peter Davison's 5th Doctor.
Oh, wow.
And so it's the younger, charming Doctor from, the 80s. And it's nice what happens in the first story, The Lady in the Lake. You have a very mysterious kind of Nordic noir story where, strange stuff is happening, and it's like kind of bleak and stuff, which is the way a lot of Nordic noir is. And then at the end of the play, after River has gotten through the events, it's like, I need my husband, any one of him. I don't care which. And and she just needs some time to recoup, and so she meets Peter Davison, who of course does not know who she is,
right?
But still, he's her husband, and that's what she needs, and so he gets prominently featured thereafter. The next play is Requiem for the Doctor. Then we have one set entirely in a restaurant called My Dinner with Andrew, and then it caps out with the Furies. And my favorite of all of them is My Dinner with Andrew, which is structured as if it's a meal. So you have this. It's a French restaurant, and so you have this French waiter announcing the courses, and it's structured. The play is structured around the courses. So you have the aperitif, and you have the appetizer, and you walk all the way through the dinner to the desserts as the play is unfolding, and in this one, Peter Davison gets to play multiple roles. Not only is he the doctor, he's also just some guy who happens to look like the doctor, but is a totally ordinary bloke named Andrew.
So, is it based on is it a takeoff of the movie My Dinner with Andre?
My Dinner with Andre, kind of.
Okay.
And also he gets to play a roboticized evil version of himself. So at one point, this robotic version of the Fifth Doctor is attacking, and you can just imagine the Fifth Doctor's voice say, all will bow to the power of the Doctor. All will bow to the power of the Doctor.
That's awesome.
But it's a lot of fun, and it gets more fun as it goes along.
Cool. That sounds like a must listen. I like Alex Kingston as River Song, so it's a lot of fun to get more River Song stories. Awesome. I'll have to check it out. And depending on when you're hearing this, you may be able to get in on Big Finish is having a special 8 weeks in April and May. So you might be just at the end of this. I'm not sure when we're releasing this one. That every Monday, they're giving away a free Big Finish audio production, a Doctor Who Big Finish audio production to registered users. So you can maybe get in and get one or two of them as they remain. So good. Awesome. All right. That about wraps it up. We do want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Doctor Who, including George U., Amy M., not Amy Pond, Amy M., Connie W., Robert H., and Daniel W. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. We'd also like to thank Victor Lambs, who edits the show for us every week. So that's it from us. What do you think of The Image of the Fendahl, this Fourth Doctor story? We'd love to hear what you think of it. Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, or send an email to drwho@sqpn.com. We'll be back next time and we'll be discussing something special. It's called Dreamland. It's a 10th Doctor story that's animated. So, you can find it online. You just have to search for it. I think in the usual places where you can see New Who, I think they'll often have that animated special there.
You can buy it on Amazon.
Okay, Amazon Video. All right, good. So we'll be back next time to discuss Dreamland. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Doctor Who.
Thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, it's a good thing your tribe never developed guns. They'd have woken with a start one morning and wiped themselves out.
Right. This is going to be fun.